Happy Friday, everybody,
Happy Friday.
and welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us all the way from Charlottesville, Virginia, Ellis Paul.
Hello, everybody. Oh, wow, applause. Nice touch. Nice.
Oh, and we are so happy to have you here and to have all of you here joining us. And folks are joining the party right on time.
I
They're
love it.
excited for today's show.
They're already drinking. This is, and I didn't know this was going to be, so I would have grabbed another beverage had I really.
Well, you might have that opportunity during one of the songs. But David, is enjoying a Sugar Shack Maple Stout. Oh, I
That
love
sounds
that one from
delicious.
3rd Street Brew House, Cold Spring. Chris is having a Minneapolis Uda Pills.
Hey,
Minneapolis
all right.
represent.
All right.
And Alan, happy Friday, everybody. Greenhouse Gin goes great with tonic. And I'm
Sounds
here to
delicious.
tell you, Connie,
Hey,
hello from
Connie.
Richfield, and Matthew Winters, in bed here in the West Midlands, but ready to hear some tracks from one of the great albums of all time, in
Yeah.
caps. I agree. In fact, I think I'm a little shout out to Matt Winters because I think I first heard this album in his dorm room at Columbia. Like
Wow.
I think he played it
Oh,
for
wow.
me and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." So big shout out to my friend.
Nice.
And Barbara says Ben and I are here from Maine. So
All right.
welcome wherever you are tuned in from. And if you're new to the show, this is the show where we invite different guest artists to revisit old records with us and talk about them. And it is a conversation. It's a happy hour. So tell us where you're tuned in from. If you're enjoying a snack or a beverage or just kicking back, we'd love to hear from you and ask questions as we go today. Alex enjoying a hot toddy. Oh, waiting for hot music. Well,
All
that's
right.
she knows where it's at. And we're excited to have you all here with us today. And Ellis Paul, you've done so much music and so many wonderful things over the years. But for folks who maybe aren't as familiar with your music as maybe I am, maybe you could give a brief origin story of like where you grew up, how you started making music, and maybe in particular where this album fits in your discography.
Sure. I guess I'd start that I'm from Maine. I was born in Fort Kent, Maine, which is right on the Canadian border at the very tippy top of Maine. And in fact, Canada wraps around the state, so a lot of Canada is actually south of me, believe it or not. I went to high school in Presque Isle, Maine, which is about an hour south of where I was born. And I had a great music program there at the high school that got me excited about the arts. Even though it's in a small town, farming town, there were great teachers at the high school, and that set me on a path towards the arts back then. And I went to Boston College for school. And after I graduated, I had just started playing guitar and I started doing the open mic scene in Boston, and that's where I got my start. It was a very rich time to be a singer-songwriter, folk musician in Boston because we had some grizzled veterans like Bill Morrissey and Cheryl Wheeler and Patty Larkin nearby. And then we had all of these up-and-coming great people, Patty Griffin and Vance Gilbert, The Story, Jonathan Brooke. It was just a really, really rich time to be coming up through that scene. And so many people would be going to these open mics. I'd be sitting next to Dar Williams, and then I'd have to follow her and figure out how to up my game in order to belong. And we all progressed really rapidly. And I think I did my first official recording in 1992. That was sort of a commercial recording on CD, my first CD, and that was called Say Something. And then around 93, 94 is when I was working on Stories, and it was released in 1994 on my own record label at the time. And then I got it picked up by Rounder when I got signed to Rounder Records, and Rounder re-released it.
Excellent. This album is a favorite of many, so I can't wait to dig into it with all of you. And I think we should just need music. What do you think, Tony?
I think that is what we all need. We're all here to take an hour out of our busy, hectic lives and enjoy some wonderful art and hear about the stories and recording. And I'm ready for it. And the first track we have lined up, Ellis, is 3,000 Miles. Is there anything you want to say about this tune before we listen, or do you want to say something after?
Well, going in, I guess I would say I wrote this when I was 27, 28 years old. It's based on a friend of mine, Lloyd Thayer, who used to go cross country on a Greyhound bus in the summers in college. And he had all these great stories about the people that he met on the bus. And it's become kind of a theme song with my life on the road. It just feels like it's a song that's never dropped out of my set list. So it's still very near and dear to me.
Excellent. Well, let's give it a spin. This is Ellis Paul, 3,000 Miles, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
My name is Robert Wilson. I'm from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I've been living out of a suitcase now for 14 days. I walked the boulevard in Hollywood. I caught a Vegas show that was no good. Met a dancer there who starred in a Broadway play. But it's a lonely world from this Greyhound. Believe me, I've been here 14 days. 3,000 miles. Yeah, I've been here 14 days. 3,000 miles. Now 21, that's as good a guess as any age that I've confessed to. Let's just say I'm old enough to get away. Back in school I found the only written truth on bathroom stalls and telephone booths. I studied a while, but college got in my way. I've learned much more from the back in this Greyhound. Believe me, I've been here 14 days. 3,000 miles. Yeah, I've been here 14 days. Have you seen well, the world outside is turning and it's yours? Yeah, we were put here for the learning. People talk to themselves on Greyhounds. Even the driver strains to hear. They tell the same forgotten story. Well, they fall on forgetful ear. 3,000 miles. I've come a long, long way. 3,000 miles. Down in Houston, on comes a woman with 2 kids and a bottle of booze. And they crack them Bud Light match heads whenever they venture too close to a fuse. And I sat with a girl from Boston playing cards for cigarettes. I lost her name at the poker game, the face I will never forget. You never forget the view of these windows. Believe me, I've been here 14 days. 3,000 miles. Come a long, long way. 3,000 miles. Come a long, long way. 3,000 miles. Come a long, long
Oh yeah, Ellis Paul with 3,000 Miles, and it's one of my favorites, and certainly a lot of other folks echoing that sentiment. Doug says that Stories is one of his favorite albums. Mara says that 3,000 Miles was her introduction to Ellis 15 years ago, and yeah, so many great images. And also, I want to call out this other comment from Matt Winters from earlier. He said, "I definitely had. I studied a while, but college got in my way. Written on my dorm room." Just great.
Yeah. Little pieces of wisdom. So
yeah.
cool.
It's so great.
Love
And
it.
listening to that song, it's been a while since I've heard this original version of the song, and I just forgot how great the production sounds and the
Hmm.
singing, all that those I mean, and there's a lot of powerhouse singers singing on the album in general and guesting in on the album, but on that track, maybe you could tell us who's singing on that.
The backing tracks are Martin Sexton and Patty Griffin, which is like,
An embarrassment of riches.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if there are moments where even if you just listen only to the background parts, it would be worth listening to. They're so great. And yeah, I can like the high note. Patty hits some crazy high note, and then Martin starts riffing at the end. We were all these young pups just coming up, and they really made that song come alive. So a guy named Duke Levine produced it. He's sort of a legend up in New England on guitar. He's traveling with Bonnie Raitt right now. So
Is he doing the electric work on that?
yeah, he's doing all the electric work, and we had a great, it's basically a Boston all-star band, and fortunately they kicked butt on that one. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated. I always appreciate an appropriate fade out, especially when it seems to tie into the vibe of the tune. Right, this is a traveling tune,
Oh,
and you're
right,
moving,
yeah.
and it just kind of fades out in the end. And one of the things I'm really just always interested about is, how decisions are made in the studio, whether it's production or, can we use this kind of technique or that technique to better tell the story? How involved are you, or were you at least in this record, with those kinds of decisions?
I was, it's a balancing act as a producer. You have to make sure that the artist is getting what they want as well. So in those early days, I didn't have a lot of experience, so I hired people that had been on a lot of records. And Duke hadn't produced too many people at that point, but he had played on so many records that had a good sense of how to build tension in the song and build momentum, and then break it out again and create space. So. I was really lucky on that record to have him at the helm, because it's sort of like a perfect record of that era. It's in that sort of REM, Indigo Girls kind of jangly acoustic guitar, strummy, with a good drummer behind it, and it sounds like it's from an era, and yeah, I'm pretty proud of it still.
It's got that.
And
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's got that kind of warm analog kind of vibe. This was kind of early days of digital. Do you remember which direction you went on this one?
Oh, it was all 2-inch tape. Yeah,
There you go.
there was like, I just remember a garage full of 2-inch tapes at the end of the project, and I inherited them all. I have no idea where those things are now. They're lost to the ages. But now, of course, you can just run it through some AI thing, and it'll break all the parts, and you can
Yeah.
remix it again and again. Oddly enough. So yeah, it's again, this record. I think this record as a whole kind of defined my approach to writing, and defined me as a storyteller, and because of that, I feel I've been on that same path ever since.
Well, it's so interesting hearing you talk about the recording of this song and how it does, although it does echo some of those 90s sounds you were talking about. I was struck by listening to this song today, how not dated it felt. Like I just was like, oh yeah, like it didn't, there's some albums you love and you cherish them and they still sound good, but you can definitely are like, oh yeah, that was so 90s. I can't,
Right.
Like a
I
certain
can't separate
reverb
it.
style or production
Yeah.
thing. Or
Yeah.
no.
And I feel like this just sounds so good stacking it up against any recording today. So for it being your sophomore effort, it's kind of amazing. And Matthew Winters chiming in. Obviously, it's his favorite record, as he said. So timeless. Totally agree. And Jay chimed in. I'm a new Ellis Paul groupie. Saw him
All right.
recently in Franklin, Massachusetts, and Booth Bay Harbor, Maine. I'm hooked. So.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
This music, no matter where you enter it, it always sounds good and is relatable. And as you mentioned, you're a storyteller. I mean, that seems to be at the heart of all the songs you write, was that, you said this album sort of defined or kind of set you on the path for the kind of songwriter you are today. Did that change at all at any point for you? At one point where you're like, oh, I'm a storyteller. Like, did that shift how you think about your writing?
I think there were times when I was less driven by the lyric than I was then. I was just trying to get my feet in the ground as far as being a writer, like a writer songwriter. Somebody that was known for their writing. I didn't have a big voice like Martin Sexton or a beautifully torn one like Patty Griffin. So I sort of needed to lead with the lyric, and over time, as my voice grew out of that sort of unlearned kind of singing style into something more soulful, the lyric could be wrapped around the vocal a little bit more, and oftentimes I was thinking more about what I was sounding like than what I was saying. But I think the heart of what I do even now is based around stories, and this is sort of like a cornerstone record for me because of that. It's I think I've been chasing after the perfect combination of the personal and the story songs in every album I've done since. And I think the last two albums I've done fit more in this category than stuff that I've done in between.
It's funny you say that, because Joni just put in the comments, 55, which is your new record, flows with beautiful stories in a similar way years later. Both amazing, as are all of the ones in between. So, yeah, sounding great. And we should, since you brought up your new album, we should just make sure to mention that you have a new album that came out in June called 55. Is there anything you want to mention about that and where people can get a copy of it?
You can always go to my website, but it's distributed through all the regular channels, iTunes, Spotify, all of those folks. And the record, I put it out. I wrote it during the pandemic and recorded a lot of it as the pandemic was waning. And I was constantly listening to the Beatles as I was recording it, trying to pretend like I was the missing Beatle. And then I put it out, and all the reviews said I sounded like Cat Stevens. So
That's not so bad.
well, I got the right country at least. The dart landed on the right continent and right country, but not quite expected to hear Cat Stevens. But then I went back and started listening to Cat Stevens just to see if, because so many were bringing it up, I'm like, maybe I need to go back and listen to Cat Stevens. And sure enough, Cat Stevens sounds a lot like Ellis Paul.
It's really weird.
Strange, yeah.
That actually ties into a question I had. Like, what were you listening to growing up? Or were you surrounded by folk music? Is this something you discovered later?
No, I think, I came into Boston when I was 18 years old to go to college here. And it was right when a station called WBOS started playing sort of the classic hits of the 70s. And so I was hearing Dylan, like, really truly for the first time, Neil Young for the first time, Joni Mitchell, CSN, all of those people. And that kind of moved me in a way that I wasn't exposed to music that, when I was younger, that did anything like that. So I started looking around for a guitar, and I eventually picked one up, and I started writing about the time I bought it. And I learned a few songs, but I basically learned everything from writing songs, making mistakes, making changes, moving to the next song, and so forth. And it's only really in my later adult career that I started, learning cover songs and tried to figure out how they were doing things that I hadn't learned coming up. So
Thanks.
Well, if folks are liking what they're hearing, and clearly they are, I know some of these are longtime fans, but for folks who maybe are newer to this Ellis Paul album, it's out of print, sadly, but you can. So if you find a copy anywhere on eBay, you can't have my copy. I'm sorry.
Do you have that laying around there, Ellen?
What was that?
Do you have your copy handy?
I do, actually. And this is why I wanted to share it, because so the liner notes, that's right, it's signed by Ellis Paul. And I just discovered this today. It was dated April 4th, 1998 in Cleveland, Ohio, where I saw Ellis Paul perform, and I clearly bought this record on that night, and it said Ellen Spread the Music, Ellis Paul. So I think it was at the Barking Spider Tavern is my guess, but I could be wrong, Ellis, if you have another memory of playing around 98 in Cleveland. But
I played a few places in Cleveland, but I think the Barking Spider was the first show I did in Cleveland. So, and it seems like that's the right era. So,
yeah, it was like a
nice.
little pub. And I think there was not a very large crowd that night, but the folks who were there loved it, including me. So, so folks can't have my copy of the album, but if you find it anywhere, snag it wherever you can. You can also get the digital tracks at ellispaul.com, and you'll want the high res audio files because it really sounds fantastic. And we're going to talk more about the production coming up. But Doug has a question. He said, tell us about the album cover. Is that photo in Downtown Crossing?
That is right off Boston Common in a little alleyway near Downtown Crossing. That is true. And obviously I couldn't afford jeans at the time. And I had a lot more hair. But the thing that's kind of cool is that there's an XPN sticker on it, and which the WXPN in Philadelphia love that. And it's a great looking shot. It sort of obviously evokes that Dylan thing. That Dylan video where he's doing the placards and throwing off. I can't remember what song it was. Maggie's Farm.
I think
Subterranean
Homesick Blues. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I still have that journal somewhere on my back shelf here. And you open it up and it says stories running across it. So I'm holding up a book, and that we did a series of shots, and that one to me was the most. I don't know, a back alley near a trash dump, but like, who would have known?
I also.
That's where some of the best stories happen.
Exactly.
Right in that alleyway, right?
The garbage is inspiration, that's for sure. And also, I also love that your guitar case has like one sticker on it. And you can tell you're at your earlier part of your career.
Yeah,
like
it's a brand new guitar.
It's covered in like 20 million stickers yet. So,
I want to circle back actually to this signature you have, Ellen, on your CD. What did he tell you to do?
Spread the music.
Okay, I love that. That's definitely what we're all about here at Back Catalog. But I mean, already it seemed like you maybe were operating with some sort of mission in mind. Can you talk a little bit about maybe like what drove you to the music and how that became like your mantra, at least at that time?
Well, on that record, I mean, I don't know how many I sold off stage, probably 15, 20,000 off stage over the years. And every time I sold it, I wrote exactly that one thing. And oftentimes with every record, I'd come up with a signature for that record and some kind of message to the audience or to the listener that to think about as they're listening to the record. And that one was smart because a lot of people took it to heart and started spreading the music. And I mean, we forget, especially now, I think a lot of us are so set in our ways that we're like, we don't want to share our music discoveries with other people. But when you're 19, 20, 21, that's sort of your principal cultural take in life. This is how I communicate with my friends. I share the music I'm listening to. And I think it really helped, especially with an indie record, you got to do everything you can to spur people to share it, because word of mouth is still the best way to get things done as far as getting your name out there.
Yeah, and Ellen, started a radio show and started spreading the music thanks to your
Right,
your
all because of your signature, Ellis.
Don't blame me.
And Joni chimed in with, I spent college making mixed cassette tapes for my best friends at other schools. And as did, I'm sure all of us spent a lot of time doing that. Those of us of a certain age, making mixtapes. And I think that's how most DJ careers get started, actually, is through making mixes, connecting the dots between different songwriters and music. Well, I want to hear more music, speaking of
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
because we could
We have
gab
a
all
mixtape
day.
going here. We have a mixtape going.
We
here.
have our own mixtape happening, and this is one for those of you who are new to the show. We pick the guests, we invite them to be on the show, and then they pick both the album and the tracks that we listen to. So this is not dictated by us. So this is Ellis Paul's mixtape today, and the next track he picked to feature from this album that came out in 1994 is "Here She Is." Is there anything you want to say about this song before you take a listen?
Yeah, the thing I love about this song is that it's a character study of the woman that I was with at the time. Emily Higgins was her name, still is. Well, she's got a new partner, so Emily McDevitt is her name now. And she was my high school sweetheart. We dated in college, and then afterwards in college we got together and were married briefly for a while. And the thing I love about this is that it captures who she is and all the wonderful different personality traits that she had. And, it's sort of, to me, it's like looking at a painting of her in a lot of ways when I listen to this song.
Excellent. Let's give it a listen. This is Ellis Paul, Here She Is, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
If you could paint her, she'd be a Picasso. She's got a few things out of place. Like when she smiles, it's slightly out of line. It's half awkward yet half grace. While you're unraveling this mystery of where she fits in time and space, she'll drag you into this lover's tale, though she will not give a reason. And if you fight her tooth and nail, she won't give up until you lose. She wants the last word, the last dance. Thinks it's absurd that you believe in second chances. You're a lost cause, yet here she is, and that's the mystery. Here she is. Here she is, here she is. She's a poem by Ferlinghetti. She's the angel in a nursery rhyme. She'll set you a place at your table, then fill your cup till you're drunk on red wine. She don't believe in stars or in miracles, though she reads your horoscope daily. And if your response is too cynical, she'll say, who are you to know? She wants the last word, the last dance. Thinks it's absurd that you believe in second chances. You're a lost cause, yet here she is, and that's the mystery. Here she is. Here she is, here she is. Here she is. While you're unraveling this mystery of how she fits in time and space, she'll memorize your history and decorate your place. She wants the last word, the last dance. Thinks it's absurd that you believe in second chances. You're a lost cause, yet here she is, and that's the mystery. Here she is. Here she is. Here she is.
Beautiful. That is Ellis Paul with Here She Is here on the back catalog listening party. Ellen, I believe you are muted. And we are listening.
You missed my effusive comment. Oh, wow, I forgot how great this song is. But I just said it, so you all heard it. And folks echoing that sentiment. And also Chris says, I hear it. Cat Stevens does sound like Ellis Paul. So
there we go.
And Joe says, this is a really finely crafted, multi-dimensional character portrait, a complete picture. And I agree with these songs. I mean, the kind of literary perspective it seems so strong. Did you, when you were in college, were you studying writing? Were you like an English major or something?
Yeah, I was. And a lot of that, you have to kind of unlearn when you're writing songs, because it's less of an academic and more kind of a conversational way of writing. And but again, this one, I feel like I got a really nice portrait of the person I was writing about. And my voice to my ears sounds green. I sound young. This is 28 years ago or so, maybe 29 years ago. So it's nice. It's nice to know that I still could wrap my hand around a lyric, and I was still green. I had a lot to learn, but all the ingredients of a long career were in front of me. And I think this was the record where I kind of thought, okay, I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'm going to be able to do this and for a living. And thank God for this record, because I'm sure I was wobbly there for a while.
Michelle also said one cool thing about this song is that it's a love song without actually saying the word love. And I think that, that's always something you're told. And if you study like creative writing, is, like show, don't tell. Right. So that's what you really did in this song, literally as a portrait, showing who this person is, and conveyed with a lot of love. And also I want to call out another comment that we had from Gordon, who said, I love you, Ellis. Love that we get to hear about stories. One of my faves, as you know. And if you are new to the show, it looks like there are a few people that are. We just want to remind you that this is what we do every week here at the Back Catalog Listening Party. Every Friday at 4 p.m. Central, we invite different guest artists to revisit old records. And we want to have your questions and feedback as part of the show. And we would love that to hear from you. And also someone mentioned that they came to the show because they're part of your Patreon. And so this is a great opportunity to talk about your Patreon and what folks might get if they come and support you through that avenue.
Oh, well, Patreon, mainly my first I guess review of gratitude would be saying that Patreon saved my life during the pandemic. Since so many people I just started the page in January, and the pandemic happened in February, March. And I think in the first month we had maybe a couple hundred people, and then by April we had 800. And now that the pandemic is gone, there's still 800 people there, and they are funding a more sane version of my life. In my old life prior to the pandemic was just road, 150 to 200 shows a year. And with that little bit of breath, I can be home more and live more thoughtfully, and afford to bring in people like Radoslav Lorkovich, who's touring with me this year. And it just has been just an absolute savior for me. And I try and get on almost weekly to play for the Patreon people. And on every Wednesday, Karen, who's manages my office, she puts up something from the archive so that people get weekly things that are happening. And so every week we might have, a live version of Here She Is from 1996, or me singing with Patty Griffin over here at some event. And so we have weekly posts and a weekly live stream, and anything that comes up, like as far as my creative life, like if I'm making a CD or an album, they'll get a copy of it in the mail that year. And trying to figure out what I'm going to offer them this year. I don't have any plans to do a record, but I might do just demos, vocal guitar demos, and send them out to everybody digitally this year. So
Excellent. So if you want to get in on that, get all the Ellis Paul action, you want to join his Patreon and support whatever is next for Ellis Paul. And also for folks who are from the Ellis Paul's Patreon or our Patreon, we're having a special after party today. So that's another little bonus for folks, and that will be happening after this on Zoom. And yeah, I am so excited about talking about this record. This has been so much fun. But one thing I want to ask about, because I noticed it in the two songs we've already heard, is the organ. There's some really great organ parts on this record. And I don't know if you remember who played on it, but
A guy named Tommy West played on that. He lived at the time in Worcester, Mass, and he was like, just the flavor that he brought to the record, because it's on so many songs, and with the Hammond, it's such a distinctive. It can eat a track up if someone gets out of hand with it, but he manages to make it speak where it needs to speak, and then it's a padding everywhere else. And so yeah, the flavor of the electric guitar and the Hammond and the drums really made the record in my mind.
Yeah, and here she is, as you mentioned, is such a different tone to 3,000 Miles, and the organ sounded equally great on both. Yeah.
I always joke that I should have called that song "There She Goes."
Well, Karen chimed in to say she was lobbying for more stories or stories too. So
maybe that's the part two.
We have the title now. You can just fill in the rest with that.
I'm right at the very initial stages of planning what a next record would look like for me, and I'm almost thinking that maybe what I should do is do like a chapter novel of music where every song is a chapter that tells this progression of life between these two characters, and maybe have that be the thing I do. So it's sort of like a novel of some kind, but each song would stand independently. It wouldn't be like like a Broadway musical. It would be like every song could stand on its own. It wouldn't be like Hamilton or something like that.
Well, that brings up an interesting question, because you went from, studying English and literature and writing to moving to songwriting. And then later you've had books. So you've kind of gone backwards or not backwards, but like, you've returned. Yeah. Full circle is a better way of saying it. So tell us about sort of that journey. Like, are there things that you write that you're like, I don't know what it is? Is it a song? Is it a story?
Occasionally. Yeah. I've written a couple children's books. One was based on a children's album I did, and one on a single song. And then I released a book of lyrics and prose, little journal entries, really. So I've done 3 books, but people aren't buying music anymore in the same way that they used to. They're streaming now, so I'm trying to figure out how to become a book publisher in the next decade, maybe even in the next 20 years, and release both music and books for kids and adults and songwriters, and we'll see. I've still got a lot of dreams that are still alive in my head, and but I'm not getting any younger, so we gotta get to those.
Well, then folks should go to ellispaul.com, purchase that music, because I will say, and the books, and also we should say that here at the Back Catalog Listening Party, a lot of our regular party regulars do buy music, and they love to buy the music and support the artists. So we're trying to keep that alive here, the album format, buying music, supporting the artists. So a great way to do that is ellispaul.com. Also, Ellis we have a tip jar going for Ellis Paul as well. So if you just want to throw a little dough in there, even if you don't need to buy any physical things, you can still give money and support the cause of Ellis Paul doing all his creative endeavors. So
you guys have this all decked out. I'm taking notes. I love the streaming thing on underneath. I haven't done it that way before.
Well,
it's nice.
There's nothing like having done, how many episodes of this now have we done?
192, I guess. This is
192.
Wow.
And this was a result of the pandemic as well, us missing musicians and our music loving tribe. And that's what we get to do every week here. Sadly, not every week with Ellis Paul, but always with great artists. And while we have Ellis here, we have a question from Jay. He wanted to know a question that I know you probably get asked a lot. I know a lot of musicians get asked this question, a lot of songwriters. Which comes first, the lyrics or the music? And I'm guessing it's not always one, but
Yeah, it's always different. Sometimes a title, when I come up with an idea, I'll write it down in my iPhone. When I come up with a melodic idea, I'll record it into my iPhone. And if I come up with like lyrical content, I'll also write it out, and I'll write it on my iPhone. And then I might go to the guitar after the lyric, or the guitar part might start the song if I come up with the right kind of guitar piece. And then that guitar piece will tell me what I'm writing about. But the only thing that's really consistent is that the iPhone is involved. And that's sort of the birthplace. Without Steve Jobs, I'd be just using napkins.
You're not alone. I'd say, 98% or more even of our guests, when we ask those questions about capturing your ideas and keeping track, it's almost always, might be an Android or something, but it's the voice memo app on whatever device you have handy. Has helped bring so much great music to the world. And while we're on that kind of thread, just another thing that comes up from time to time is like the songwriter's process. There's some songwriters that, they wait for the muse to hit them, and there's other songwriters that sit down every day at 8 a.m. and they write. Which camp do you fall into there?
I fall into the I'll write when I can until I have to write. If there's an approaching deadline, I will do the daily slog of it. But usually, like right now, I just put out a record 6 months ago, and I've only written one song since that point. But I'm trying to figure out where to shoot the arrows first. And once I got that direction, I want to do a record like this. That'll lead me into writing more often. And I expect in the next couple of months, I'll start up and probably write maybe 1 or 2 songs a month.
well, I have to say, if you need someone to just provide a deadline for you, I'm happy to provide that service. I'll be like my monthly bug, be like, have you been writing, Ellis?
I need somebody.
Ellis, you mentioned that, you were kind of looking for the next kind of maybe box to put around the album. You're thinking chapters and stories. And that's another theme that comes up time and time again on the show, where sometimes it's like, if it's just infinite choices, nothing happens. But you put some constraints around it, and you give it like, this palette of colors or that. Suddenly you get more creative with those limitations. It sounds like that's kind of part of your process. Is that true for like an album like Stories, or just the newer
It wasn't
ones?
then. I think I just was gravitating to sort of a generalized writing style of writing these character portraits and mini stories. But that record, Stories, hung together very, very well around that. Now I'm thinking of making it even more conceptual, and maybe, the first song that I wrote since this new album came out is about multiverses. It's almost like a science fiction thing, but it's a straight ahead love story. So you wouldn't, it's about like, I can't be with this person in this universe, but maybe in another universe, we would have we'd have a family, we'd live on a cul-de-sac, we'd be married, we'd have kids. And so I was thinking like maybe I would frame it around the idea of multiple versions of ourselves and tell this couple's love story through that kind of thing.
Excellent.
But then again, it would be more fiction. And the one thing about Stories, it's based on real people and real events and stuff that's, it just feels very present because it's not fictionalized.
Well, I want to hear that record. So all of
Yeah,
you,
me
throw
too.
some money in that tip jar. Buy some Ellis Paul merch. We need to fund this thing.
Yeah.
And Joe had a question about how about those one-time personal songs you write for a celebration of a friend's life? Do you have a few favorites that you've never recorded?
I've had people hire me to write custom songs for events. And in fact, I've got 3 or 4 on tap right now that I need to work on. Like they want me to write a song for their wife's anniversary, you know, and write their love story. And yeah, sometimes those songs can really work out great. And and not all of them make it onto albums. You know, only 1 in 20 maybe would make it onto a record. But yeah, I do have a few of those.
And if folks were interested in hiring you for something like that, is that on your website?
Yeah, but I've got a backlog. Just so you know.
Okay. So forget I just said that.
I'm looking at. I have 3 to go. I'm going to try and get one of them off my plate this month.
Well, that reminds me of a songwriter. I think it might have been Hope Dunbar who was talking about. I think it was at Focal Lines International Conference one year.
I love Hope Dunbar.
Isn't she great?
She's so fun.
One of our past guests here on the back catalog, and she mentioned that I think it was after doing a Kickstarter that she had done that she hadn't done the level high enough for like a commission of a new song, so she had like 50 songs to write or something.
Oh, yeah.
All with like individualized.
Wasn't it like a Kickstarter reward or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that?
it was.
And she had no idea that
If
that's
that
what was going to
happens,
happen.
what I would do is I would record one basic track of the band and then change the lyrics for each person. Just do the same song with just different
Just change the name, you know.
Yeah,
Susan.
yeah, right.
Oh man.
Well, speaking of music, I'm loving this conversation so much, but I would
We
love
gotta
to get
get
to
to-
1 or 2 more songs
yeah.
here
All right, sure.
before the end of the hour. And man, there's so much we want to talk about, but luckily for us, we have an after party with Ellis. But for now, let's make sure that everybody out there hanging out with us gets to hear another track. The next song we have lined up is Autobiography of a Pistol. Is there anything you'd like to say about this one before we give it a spin?
Yeah, you know, I had the idea in my quiver for a long time. I think it took me 3 years to finish this song between when I started with the idea and where it finally ended up. And the song is written from the perspective of a pistol that got used in a crime. And and there's a great guitar riff by Duke Levine. I think you'll love it.
Awesome. I can't wait. Ellis Paul, Autobiography of a Pistol, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I'm a pistol, a 45. I just shot 2 men in this hothouse dive. Now I'm smoking it, I'm burning hot. A barrel of metal, believe it or not. I was bought by a man named Ray. A card, can't remember
Ellis Paul with
Yeah.
Autobiography of a Pistol from his 1994 album Stories, which we are revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Ellis Paul joining us from Charlottesville, Virginia. I love that song. I love the whole perspective. There's even just using that line, or that twist on that thing. It's like it's guns that kill people, and then you're like, no, it's the bullets. I love that. It's like, that's the thing with so many things surrounding gun violence. It's always someone saying, oh, it's not this, it's this, and so I love that you kind of do that even from the guns perspective. It's like, it's not my fault.
No one wants to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Even the gun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you picked up on that because it's sort of the crux of the whole song is that one line.
That's a good one. And that,
often
man,
my
that line,
songs-
go ahead.
I was going to say often my songs have that one line that's got just a turn of phrase or a little pretzel of a brain turnaround is at the heart of the very song that I'm writing, and I kind of build the whole song around that one line.
Yeah, well, it's a great song.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just reiterate how amazing the guitar work was on that, on that
my
track.
God,
Holy smokes.
And the drums, like what a cool,
So good.
rhythmic kind of setup for the song,
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a like sometimes you write something and you bring it in the studio and the song doesn't live up to the recording doesn't live up to the song's potential, and I wouldn't say that with this one. It just seems like it was the right guitar player, it was the right drummer, it was the right content in the song. The lyric is great, the singing's great, and we got. It's one of my best songs. I'm looking back, guys, because a lot of these songs don't have videos. So when you go to YouTube, you just have to look at the album cover and listen to the songs go by, which is just not fun. So I've made a list of 50 of my best songs, and all 3 of these songs so far would be on that list. And I'm going to be doing videos, not always with me and them, but I'm going to be trying to do 50 videos over the next year or two. The best songs of my catalog, so people can watch them on YouTube with a proper visual partner.
Nice.
Another mixtape.
I know.
For your fans.
Right.
This is great. And Joni also, Lynn and Joni commenting. Lynn said, joined late here at the Back Catalog Listening Party, but just in time to hear this wonderful song. And Joni says, the link to that guns have bodies attached to them in the world of policing, as if the guns took those lives without the humans involved. And then Barbara says, Barbara echoes your great plan for making videos. So, well, keep the comments coming. Keep the questions coming. We're going to squeeze in one more tune real quick here before we take leave, because the conversation's been so great. We want to make sure you get your full slate of songs. And before we do, I need to thank our Patreon supporters. These are the folks that have kept the Back Catalog Listening Party rocking for 192 episodes. Even after things opened up after the pandemic, people are like, we still want to be online and capture these great conversations and talk with artists about their old records, because we want to value all this great music that's been made, the heart, the soul, the money, the time that's gone into these pieces of art, and value them for what they are, which is something in today's society we don't do enough of. So Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, CJ, Wiley, and Stephanie, and maybe you, if you want to support this show and keep it going. We would love to have you join us. You get invited to special after parties, like we're going to have one for our top tier patrons after today's live broadcast. We also give you sneak peek at all the guest artists, sometimes do live streams, all that kind. And you can get a founder's pint glass of the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Mine is
Tony's
empty.
yeah, there's a beer rim on that glass.
It was a
really good party.
It was a really good episode, so it went quickly, but
yeah, you can join us at patreon.com/Back Catalog Listening Party. But we're going to dive into the next song real quick here. And if there's anything quick you want to say about it, it's Who Killed John Lennon.
Yeah, it was written because it was around the anniversary of his death, and they were interviewing his killer on the television and just giving the guy everything that he did the act for. And so this was sort of my protest against giving him airtime and mentioning his name at all. I won't. I've never mentioned his name since I wrote the song.
Well, appropriately titled Who Killed John Lennon, Ellis Paul, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Do not mention his name. The man kills John Lennon, now he's on TV again. He's blaming hole in Caulfield in the face of the lens. And each time he does it, he kills him again. Now who killed John Lennon? A loser with a pistol, a martyr's best friend. And each time he's televised, he kills him again. It's the prize that he wanted when he loaded the gun. And each time he's mentioned, murder is done. Who killed John Lennon? And no one. And no one. He's on TV again. He's playing the hero. The network won't let the story end. He brings in the ratings for them. He's playing the hero. He's a killer. He's been convicted. He's been convicted. He's been convicted. His lawyer must think it's a game. Though he knows Lennon's songs, both in word and by name. Cold calls the networks, then retrieves all the funds. And then he scrapes his percentage when the program's run. Now who killed John Lennon? Lawyer and agent, big money's best friend. And each time he's televised, he kills him again. It's the prize that they wanted when he emptied the gun. And each time he's televised, murder is done. So who killed John Lennon? And no one. I know one. I know one.
Ellis Paul with Who Killed John Lennon from his 1994 album Stories, which we have been revisiting today here on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Ellis Paul, joining us from Charlottesville, Virginia. And Yeah, what a great tune. And Joni says, what a powerful song. And we had a question, Ellis, that I want to get to before we go here. Doug asked, oh,
Oh,
do
sorry.
I do I recall a story about Neil Young hearing this album? Wish you could collaborate with him. Is that rumor true, Ellis? I think you're muted, actually.
Unfortunately, I don't know of Neil Young ever hearing my
But let's
music
start
at
that
all.
rumor, though. Let's
Yeah.
just keep that going, you know?
He's my desert island artist, so that would be a thrill to have him.
Okay, we're going to manifest it right now in the
Yes,
back,
yes.
you
Neil,
know,
if you're watching,
setting intentions for the new year.
well, you know what would help Neil find this episode would be if you're out there listening, just give it a thumbs up because it's going to direct more people to Ellis in this episode. And if you like what you've been hearing today, you could subscribe to this channel too. But I'm sure YouTube's algorithm is going to hear Neil Young a couple times and just start sending it.
Yeah,
to his,
all the
his
bots are
people.
listening to us all the time. So
Hey, we get the Brady Bunch going here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
That's right.
Bunch squares.
We always joke about that
we're-
when we're listening to music. It's like,
Matt gives all the clap emojis for today's show, and
Thank you, Matt.
Joni passes on her thanks for a wonderful time together. And Connie, what a fascinating show. Thank you. Really, thanks to you, Ellis, for joining us
Yes.
and
My
providing
pleasure.
all
This is
this
fun.
great songs and conversation. So much fun.
and there's so much that I'd like to know.
I
This could have been
know.
like a 5-hour episode.
Oh, for sure. Still
circle
talking about
back.
those songs. Yeah.
I know. I can't wait. Okay, lucky for us, we have a Patreon after party right after this where we get to a little more FaceTime with Ellis. If you're interested in that kind of thing, in the future, you can become part of Ellis's Patreon community or part of our Patreon community or both. And then we can really get more involved in those. And we also have another song maybe we'll get a chance to listen to. But it's just a real honor to have you with us today, Ellis, and for you to give us an hour of your time and share your stories about stories. There's no good way of saying that, because it's what I think ultimately what brings people together is the stories. I mean, and it's so appropriate, and your mission is so aligned with ours, and the fact that all these people came in today to hang out together, it's the best part of my week, and it's because of the people. So I also want to thank everybody who spent the time with us today live, anybody who's watching later, all the folks in the comments. I mean, I've had quite a week here. Lots of things went terribly wrong, but music has a way of making things right, and
right.
I just appreciate it so much, and it worked once again.
Everything that Tony said. We're so happy you're here, and we hope to see you back next week for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party with another great guest. And have a wonderful new year. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you back next week.
All right, until then, cheers.
Cheers.
See you guys.